Jay Sekulow, an attorney with a passion for protecting religious liberty. To understand Jay's commitment to defending religious freedom, you've got to start with his family.
I never argued a case at the Supreme Court of the United States, and here I was, the grandson of a Russian immigrant. I'm only the second generation of my family born in the United States. And my grandfather came into the United States at age 14 through Ellis Island, was a Russian immigrant, fled Russia with his family because of religious persecution against Jews.
For nearly a quarter of a century, Jay has been on the front lines, even before the formation of the American Center for Law and Justice in 1990. Jay at the Supreme Court, arguing Board of Airport Commissioners versus Jews for Jesus, challenging a public airport's ban on First Amendment activities.
Well, that was the first case, Jews for Jesus, and I had never been inside the Supreme Court of the United States until 3 weeks before I argued that case. The Supreme Court had just granted review. It was about literature distribution at airports, evangelism at airports. When I went to the Supreme Court of the United States, my entire pitch in that case was, this case is about freedom of speech. All 9 justices agreed that, in fact, that was unconstitutional. One of these magazines, one of these legal magazines, said my argument was rude, aggressive, and obnoxious. But then when we won unanimously, and they were recasting the argument, they said I remained undeterred during intense questioning.
Jay's passion for the law and his desire to safeguard religious liberty really flourished at the Supreme Court. After the Jews for Jesus unanimous victory in 1987, the American Center for Law and Justice was formed in 1990, followed by a series of precedent-setting decisions. In 1990, a compelling victory, opening the door for student Bible clubs across America.
Bridget Mergens stood before the school board and asked that she be allowed to have a prayer club and a Bible club meet on her public high school campus. And they were denied that right.
On June 4th, 1990, 8 of the 9 Supreme Court justices ruled in favor of Mergens.
That's what the world said, that you'd have prayer and Bible studies back in a public school. No way. And then the decision came out. And it wasn't just a little victory, it was 8 justices out of 9. What does that say? God answers the prayer of his people.
For Jay, the next chapter, protecting the sanctity of human life. That too at the Supreme Court.
The U.S. Supreme Court hears arguments this week in a case backed by President Bush that could roll back the right of a woman to choose whether or not to have an abortion.
As the case came to the Supreme Court of the United States, we realized that this could be a capstone.
I think the Justice Department took the proper approach, and they agreed with us on all points, and that is that this statute should not be applied to this activity, that opposition to abortion does not constitute discrimination against women. Thank you. No one knows whether you win or lose these cases until it comes out. I felt the arguments went well. We made all of our points. They appeared to be receptive to our side, and I felt that they gave the other side a hard time, and they gave us a hard time. It wasn't an easy argument.
There was a question whether federal courts had jurisdiction over these abortion protests. Well, fortunately, the federal government, the Department of Justice, agreed with our position that they did not. The pro-life movement needed some aggressive advocacy, and one thing I've been accused of, rightly so, is that I'm aggressive in the courtroom, and that aggression, the aggressive nature of the advocacy process, really needed to come to the forefront when you're dealing with abortion, and I did exactly what I do in cases, and we had a great result by God's grace.
In McConnell v. FEC in 2003, Jay cleared the way for young people, for minors, to engage the political process.
This was the big bipartisan campaign finance case. We represented, interestingly, students who wanted to contribute to political campaigns, including a Sunday school teacher who was running for Congress. I had a very short argument time. I think the entire argument may have been 5 or 10 minutes. I had 23 questions in 10 minutes of oral argument. It was non-stop.
Mr. Sekulow, is it necessary to rely on the First Amendment to reach your conclusion, or could you argue this an unreasonable restraint on liberty?
Well, I would argue both.
All 9 justices, again, agreed with my free speech argument. It showed that a strategy on free speech could work, no matter whether it was religious speech, political speech. It worked, and it kind of vindicated the position we've been advocating at that point for almost 19 years.
During this time span, Jay became a frequent advocate at the Supreme Court, appearing numerous times, defending life, defending religious liberty, and protecting our national history and heritage.
Well, 10 Commandment litigation had been going on for decades and not very well. And we had this case coming out of Utah where this little town, Pleasant Grove, wanted to fight back. And this group came in to say, well, if you're going to display a 10 Commandments monument, we want you to display our monument, which was called the 7 Aphorisms, which were basically the anti-10 Commandments monument. I went with a very aggressive strategy. It was controversial at the time. where I said, no, look, this is the government making a decision to speak here. When the government's speaking, it can determine its message. 9 justices agreed with this, so it was a great decision and a great result.
In a world where Christians face discrimination, violence, even death for practicing their faith, it soon became clear that there was work to be done abroad. Jay knew that religious liberty, freedom, is an international right, a global concern. Offices were opened around the world: France, Russia, Africa, Pakistan, Israel. With so much of our future tied to what happens in the Middle East, Jay understood the importance of establishing an office in Jerusalem.
I appreciate the support of the American people.
Thank you.
All Israelis do.
All right.
So God bless America and God bless Israel.
Thank you.
Jay was named one of the most influential lawyers in the country. He's listed as one of a distinguished group of attorneys, quote, whose vision and commitment are changing lives. Under his direction, the ACLJ has been labeled, quote, a powerful counterweight to the ACLU. A comprehensive media strategy expands the reach of the ACLJ. Jay's daily radio broadcast tackles the tough issues that matter most. His weekly television show highlights key decision makers. A user-friendly website provides regular updates. And of course, there are opportunities to debate the issues in the public arena. Jay Sekulow, Chief Counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice. Even with the accomplishments and victories, he's never very far from his roots.
My grandfather was a fruit peddler in Brooklyn, New York. My father was a retailer. What would he be thinking? That his grandson is arguing cases before the Supreme Court of the United States, the most important court in the world.